Everyone that played in BRO 2021 Standard, watched it, enjoyed it, tweeted about it, thank you so much and well done. Congratulations, it's been a very good weekend. So BRO 2021 Standard is over, and well, BRO 2021 for Vanguard in general is now over. There's just a Y stage left next week, and it was a very fun event. I really had a lot of time. Yes, I had a lot of time. This is one of the most video ever. As you can see, my brain is still recovering after this weekend. But this weekend was very, very fun. I didn't do too hot in the tournament, but honestly, I wasn't necessarily like really try-harding this weekend to top the way it was for V Premium. And instead of just kind of like having fun with everyone, and one of like the highlights for me of the tournament itself, outside of commentating EU, of course, was just meeting all the new people throughout the NA rounds that I played in. I basically played like 5 rounds, and then it was like midnight here in Europe, so I went to sleep. Or well, I stayed up until 2 AM rooting on Zistrel, who was undefeated, and then I went to sleep. But it was really fun because I got to meet so many people that got into the game with Overdress, and that was honestly one of the coolest things ever. Like, meeting people that have just started the game like a few months ago and are enjoying the franchise so much. I really hope that you continue to do your best throughout the competitive, you know, Vanguard world, and even if you just enjoy the game casually and you played in BRO, just have some fun. Like, I hope you stick around with the game because it honestly brings so much joy to my life in general, just knowing how many new people are getting into the game. So please, I'll be rooting for you, and I hope to see more of you there as well. And I also want to ask the new players, if you are watching this video, like, what kind of content do you want to see as well? Because I have my playlist of like Vanguard Essentials, kind of talk about like magic numbers and like deck building and Overdress. But there's some videos I want to do on like, you know, common misconceptions and rulings, like once per turn, and like cost, and like which effects are optional, which ones aren't. So if there's those kind of videos that you're interested in, please let me know. I would love to, you know, do more content that helps new players in particular. But anyway, today I'm going to be going over the deck that I used in the tournament, which was Lagrele Bastion. Now, you might be thinking, why did you bring Bastion? You know, I know you as a Brancate main, or like, you know, you like Nirvana. Like, why would you bring Bastion, right? It's so uncharacteristic of you. And it is true to an extent. I never really liked Bastion that much enough to bring it to a tournament until set 3 and Lagrele came out. For me, the Lagrele kind of like signified a very big change in the deck, and I really like throughout like October, November, December, I really was like, wow, I love this deck. Like, it's so fun. The pressure that you put on your opponent from the drive checks with Lagrele kind of gave me the same feeling as playing Gavriel in V Premium, which, you know, is like basically my main deck. And so it's kind of like with that feeling that I went in, and throughout a lot of my testing, I was really, really enjoying it. But it's just that then Gravidia became this big development in Japan, where Gravidia worlds started to pop up, and Gravidia checks this deck completely, just like it checks Bruce, just like it checks Lornerol, and that's why it tops so much. Same goes for Baron Magnus. It's also a really tough matchup that is very hard to beat. But those were not exactly meta decks in Japan in set 3, and I wasn't really testing as much for the English meta with those decks in mind. And I really regret not locking in either Gravidia or Buff Sagara myself. As you guys know, I still don't have my English Buff Sagara start deck. I'll be getting it tomorrow. And it's a bit unfortunate because I really did want to play that deck, and you know, it got top 4th, 3rd, I can't remember, in AO, because the deck is actually really good just from the starter alone. And so I kind of wish I did bring it, but I don't fully regret not, you know, like bringing Bastion. I kind of wish I took Gravidia instead, because I started testing that deck on Tuesday night, or like I had tested it before on CFA, but I like sleeved it up and started testing more seriously with it on Tuesday night, and registration closed on Wednesday morning. And I was like, I've tested more with Bastion, I should probably just play Bastion. And then I kind of regret, because then over the next few days I kept playing more Gravidia. I was like, damn it, this deck is way better. And as you can see from the tops, Gravidia ended up being the one that topped the bunch, and Bastion not a single time. But anyway, enough of the intro talks, let's get into the actual deck. So I'll be going over the deck and kind of like how everything works. So ride deck, of course, we have base as the starter, so you just draw when you ride over him going second. And then we have the fort, who says when you ride over him, you can reveal 2 grade 3s from your hand and call the top card of your deck. If it's a trigger, usually put it behind Vanguard to have the 15k column that makes it awkward for your opponent to 1 card guard it. Otherwise, if it's a grade 3, you attack with it, try to rush if you can, but against some matchups you can call to the back row if you don't want to get like damage denied from your Olden for turn 3, because a lot of people will do that. And then of course we have the Rooks that you ride over him, and Rook says when the Bastion rides over him, you can reveal 3 grade 3s from your hand and draw cards, so that extra card draw is also good. It lets us fish for Olden and Persona rides and stuff like that. And of course the main grade 3 of the deck is Mr. Bastion himself. So Bastion of course gives all grade 3s plus 2k power, and at the end of the battle that you drive check a grade 3, you can once per turn discard 1, stand one of your rears, and give it plus 10k power, which of course we usually want to stand stuff like Alden, because that will make him a really big attacker on even turn 3. And that's why going first with this deck is also really strong, because you get a really nice turn with very little commitment, which is also good. Like, you don't need to commit much for a strong turn 3, thanks to just how Bastion works. And so that's the right deck. It's pretty straightforward, I would say. Then for the remaining, 3 Bastion copies, of course, Persona Writing is very important in this deck because it just lifts your power ceiling like crazy, and that goes without saying. Like, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Persona Writing is Persona Writing. Then, of course, the best card in the deck is our boy Alden. So our boy Alden, of course, does multiple things. First things first, when you call him to rearguard circle, you can Calm 2 and Soul Blast 1. I'll bring it up here so you can see it better. And then you can choose a card from your hand and call it to rear, and if you call the grade 3, you draw 2. And when he attacks, if you have 3 or more grade 3s, then he gets +5 cancel on a turn, which means that when you attack with him once, he's 20 without Persona Ride, and then once you restand it with Bastion, he's going to get another 10, so he's going to be 30, and he attacks again, so he gets another 5, so he's 35 on turn 3, which is pretty damn good. So this is the most important card in the deck, I think. Still, you need to mulligan for Aldens, in my opinion. Generally speaking, with a mulligan, I typically like to keep like one, either Lagrele or Alden, and then mulligan the rest, or like, of course, Persona Rides too. But I like to keep at least one grade 3 in the opening hand because of the ride deck, and like, even though I do play a bajillion grade 3s, there's still a chance I'll just like open all triggers and I can't use my ride deck, right? But sadly, in the 3 of the 5 rounds I played, I didn't draw Alden at all. And it really hurts when you don't. It really hurts when you don't, especially in this meta where like a lot of control is running around, so you need to replace your board very frequently, and then like you're playing as Lorna rolls, you need to draw into more. You basically need to draw into your triggers to have the shield power. So Alden is very important, and he's the best attacker in the deck still, but that's also double-edged sword because if you don't draw him, you're in a big trouble. But still a very important card, and he's dropped in price too, so he's pretty easy to pick up. Now, of course, I think the most interesting part of the deck, and I think what made the deck very cool in general, is of course the Lagrele. So Lagrele is the newest addition to Bastion, and we do play 4 copies, and now let me explain how he works. I'll go over some examples of like how you should use him a bit later in this video, so we'll go through the list first and I'll show off plays after that. So when he attacks a Vanguard specifically on rearguard circle, you can Calm 2 and rest any number of your other rearguards, and until the end of the battle he can drive check and gets +5k power, so at the very least he's gonna be swinging for 20. And then at the end of the battle, if you rested 3 or less units for this cost, you choose 3 cards from your hand and discard them, and if you rested 1 or less units for this cost, you choose 2 cards from your hand and discard them. So the way this works is that you want to rest either 0, 2, or 4, because the way it's worded, if you rest 4 cards, you don't discard anything. If you rest 2 cards, you discard 3, and if you rest 4 cards, or if you rest 0 cards, then you have to discard 5, which, much like how Gravidia doesn't go for popping, 5 meteors very often, you also don't rest 0 very often. The magic of this card is that while it is a really nice pressure tool on rearguard circle, it is also kind of your, like, 8 copies of Alden. Because when you don't draw Alden, and if you opened well enough to develop a okay board on turn 3 that is like 5 units, which of course isn't good against Gravidia and stuff that, and Bruce that can like hit you and control you and stuff like that, but if you rest 4, this is kind of an Alden, because you CB2 to add an extra 2 cards to hand that you wouldn't have had otherwise, so it gives you the same amount of advantage for the same amount of CB as Alden, but it requires you to commit a much bigger board. Whereas with Alden, you can just use Alden, call a grade 3, go into battle phase. No more commitment necessary, that way you don't get screwed over by Bruce and by Gravidia as much. With this, however, you are going to lose your board, so you have to keep that in mind. So one use of it is resting 4 and being able to use him as an Alden. You only get 3 attacks that turn because you swing with Lagrele, rest 4, drive check, add those to hand, so you still get the plus. Then you attack with Bastion. Bastion hits a grade 3. You can also hit a grade 3 from his check and use the skill immediately, because Bastion doesn't need to hit a grade 3 from his own drive check. You can also hit the grade 3 from Lagrele's drive check. So if you hit it from Lagrele, you can instantly stand him. So that's why it's not bad to add a bunch of power to him if you're planning to restand him that turn. So one of the uses of him is the kind of like, if you don't have Alden, that's a way to use it. But generally speaking, if I'm not farming hand in the early turns, like usually you're only going to go for the rest 4 on like turn 3, like basically where you only have 2 CB or something. But when your opponent's at like 4, that's when I start resting 3. But when your opponent's on like 4 damage, that's when I start resting 2, and I'm happy to discard 3. The discard usually comes, most lists play draws. Spoiler alert, I don't play draws, and I'll explain why in a bit. But you usually have some dud grade 3s, like you have too many Aldens or too many spare Lagreles or too many repair cells that you're happy to burn away and you go for the 2 rest, because that means that you can swing, rest 2, then stand him, and you'll have Refersos who will also stand as a result. And then if you have another 2 CB open after restood, you can drive check with him again. So that is also very nice. Alternatively, you can go swing, rest 4, and then stand him, stand 2 Refersos by their effects, and then swing with him again, rest 2. So you only discard 3, but you drive checked 4, plus the 2 drive checks you get from Bastion, if not 3 if you used form up. That does cost Counterblast 5, which is why we run some countercharges in this deck too. So Lagrele is a very interesting card, and like you only go for the no rest when you're literally about to win. Like when you're going for game and you know you don't have another turn and you have to win this turn, then you go just Counterblast 2, rest nothing, swing, so that way you can still swing with your Alden and you can still like restand this and like CB more forward and like rest none, just like discard your whole hand. You're basically like role-playing Shion from the G anime, you know, just giving the whole like no cards in hand, you know, brave state. And it's a very fun card. Like I really do enjoy playing with this card because of that, and like pressure that you give to your opponent by the drive checks. And I've talked about it enough, but of course Mr. Refersos is very important to this deck. Now Refersos has 2 uses, right? His first skill is if you Persona Ride, he can boost. This is very good because even if you don't go for Lagrele stuff, on Persona Ride, when your Alden swings on Persona Ride, for the first attack he's 30. With this it's 40, and if you stand him, he's gonna become 45 without triggers, 15 boost, 60. He goes 45 into 60 without any triggers just on Persona Ride, which is insane. But then on top of that, the skill that makes it good in this deck in particular is of course the back row rearguard circle once per turn. When your other unit stands by card effect, he also stands. That's what I mean by like you swing with Lagrele, you rest 4, you basically like check a grade 3, restand the Lagrele, and then 2 of these restand as well, and then you can swing with Lagrele again, rest 2 of these for the drive checks again. Like yes, you are losing out on attacks, or well, 1 attack, but you're drive checking 6 in 1 turn, which is also very good. So this card is just amazing in like the versatility it has. It will be cut in set 4, so if you're only planning to play Bastion in set 4, you don't really need it, because most people play the boosting order instead. So just keep that in mind. And then we do use quite a bit of Soul in this deck, like not a tremendous amount, but it does add up bit by bit, like through the Aldens and the form ups and whatnot. So we do like Rafluke a lot, and also the countercharger uses Soul too. So Rafluke is a very simple card from the start deck. It's a grade 3, you put him into the Soul and choose one of the other grade 3 rearguards and give it plus 10 cancel on a turn. So whether this is like your way to invest more into the Aldens are going to be restanding, or if you want to split the power, like your Alden is already big enough on a Persona Ride turn, so you want to give this to your other attacking rear, or if you want to put all the power in the Lagrele who's going to be restanding a bunch, that is also a good option. So you basically just invest power with Rafluke, and he also gives you Soul, which is very good. So I think for that reason this card is still a 4-0 for the time being. And then every single Bastion deck I would say has a flex slot of 3, and I've gone over this in the first Lagrele video that I did way back when I was like testing it in CFA. And you can either play like it's so many things, right? I think for this meta I should have played Fasado, because Fasado has resist essentially, and that's a way to deal with a Gravidia matchup. Gravidia cannot actually kill Fasado, which is very cool, and you also turn off stuff like Bulldoze as a result. Now there's other cards you can run in this slot, like the grade 3 double rare from set 3, I forgot her name, but the Soul Blast one, like look at top card and you may call it to the same column card. That's a choice. The grade 1 that when discarded stands something in back row is also a choice, but the choice that I went with is Form Up O Chosen Knights. Now this is both a great card and a bad card, because there have been some games where when I ride into my fort, I would reveal the top card and it would be Form Up, and when you reveal Form Up, it goes to the drop zone, which sucks. You lose basically all of your momentum, and that's why I only play 3 orders in the whole deck. But Form Up is really good for your first grade 3 turn, because a lot of people like to rush Bastion, because I guess they're used to rushing Lorna Roll and Bruce, so they think that I guess Bastion is rushable too, and it is. But if you give me 3 CB, that means I can Alden into Form Up, because then I will basically go Alden into whatever, call any grade 3, like I'll call like a Rafluke, and then I'll activate Form Up, give myself an extra draw and a drive check and an extra 5k power, and I'll just put the Rafluke into Soul, so I don't get my field control too much, and that way I'm also rebuilding the Soul that I paid for this cost. So Form Up is nice for turn 3 in particular. After that it kind of falls off, I think, and usually like I discard it for Bastion's cost, or like if I have more than 1 in hand I'll always discard it for Ride deck as well. But Form Up in my opinion is still a good order. It's kind of almost 1 Soul plus 1, didn't even say the effect. You do effects based on how many grade 3s you have on the board. If you have 2 or more, you give a unit plus 5k. If you have 3 or more, you draw a card, and if you have 4 or more, you give your Vanguard a drive. Don't use this unless you have 3. I think 3 or more, like when you're really like stuck with no pieces, then at least it's a cycle. But count plus 1 Soul plus 1 for a cycle and a 5k is not great. Count plus 1 Soul plus 1 for a cycle as well as a drive check is very good. So I think this slot is very, like, I think for this meta, you should take this out and play Fasado. I think that Fasado, like, Gravidia is going to be everywhere. After BRO, Gravidia will be everywhere, and you need to survive that matchup somehow. So in my opinion, these three will go out of the deck and you will play Fasado. So I hope you're listening. I know, you know, I'm one to listen, okay? I watch deck profiles too, and I also like to skip through and I just kind of see which cards are being played at which number and like stuff like that, and just copy the deck list without listening. But if you're listening, this should be Fasado in this meta. This was before Gravidia was a threat. Now that Gravidia will be everywhere, play Fasado. Trust me on this, trust me. And now the thing that kind of sets this deck apart and also kind of like lowers its consistency a fair bit, but it lowers its consistency but raises its ceiling a lot because of the things you can do in battle, is the Fachata. So Fachata is a grade 1. Yes, a grade 1. Oh my god, in a Bastion deck, that's crazy. So Fachata is a grade 1, 5k shield, 8k power, and she says when you drive check a trigger, you can Soul Blast 2 and countercharge 1. That's another reason why we play Rafluke. So this grade 1 is nice because of course she still makes nice numbers with your grade 3s, because Bastion turns them into at least 15, so you still swing for at least 23. But the thing is, this opens up a bit of early rush against certain decks like Lorna as well as Bastion, against Bruce, sorry. But the most important thing is that this allows you to get more usage out of your Oldens, out of your Lagrales. And especially with Lagrales, sometimes you can only have like, you can have 3 open CB or like 2 open CB, but you have 2 copies of her and 4 soul, and you can swing with a Lagrale, use this effect, and then you can basically, if you check a trigger, just like countercharge 1 or countercharge 2 if you have 2 of her on the board, and then you can use another Lagrale, which is really, really good. So you get that kind of pressure going. So in particular, to like unlock mid-battle Lagrales, like if you have 1 CB open, you can go into battle, swing with Bastion first, which is, it's quite risky, but you can swing with Bastion first, check a trigger, use Fachata to go back up to 2 CB, and then you have your Lagrale open to be used. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of like access wiggle room in this deck thanks to Fachata. She will not be played in set 4 anymore. The deck changes quite a bit, so I don't think you will necessarily need her anymore, but for this instance of the deck, I think she is very good, and I do think that she's worth playing. Just a good grade 1 overall, and she's a pretty big component for the deck as well. Then of course, you know, going into grade 1s, it goes without saying that we play 4 PGs. This is self-explanatory, like PGs are still very important, and you know, when there's a lot of Lorna rolls, PGs aren't that good, but when there's a lot of Gravidias, PGs are very important and you want to draw into them. So you know, depends on what you're playing against Lorna roll, they won't be as great. I even discard them for right deck sometimes, but against stuff like Gravidia, it's like a might even mulligan for this, you know. Then of course, the strongest card in the deck, the OT. So of course, Amartinoa is amazing. If you check Amartinoa, you can just stop using Lagrale. And the thing with Lagrale and OTs is that because you drive check more than you used to, like you drive check, you know, going from minimum 2 to maximum 7 in 1 turn, that means you have a higher chance of seeing the OT. Whether you get closer to seeing it in damage, or whether you get closer to drawing into it for the 50k shield against Lorna roll, or you get close to checking out offense and just like plussing like a bajillion. Everything's good. Everything's good. And I think that, you know, Amartinoa is one of the strongest OTs. I mean, all the OTs are amazing, right? It's not like one of them is, I mean, some of them are stronger in certain instances of the game, but I think that, you know, the OT here is very, very good. Next, this is where I kind of differ from most lists, and most people play draws here. I play the 20k shield fronts. Now, going into this event, I expected to see Lorna roll everywhere. And when I was playtesting this deck at locals, I basically found that if I don't play fronts, I can't win against Lorna roll. Like I am just screwed because of the 5k shield draws, because I just cannot guard Lorna roll without having overtrigger in hand. Like it's such a terrible matchup. But with the fronts, I found the matchup pretty, like it was dealable, like kind of like withstandable. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but I think like honestly, now the Lorna roll is dying down and Gravidia is seeing much more, like it's just way more popular, you should probably be playing draws. Like I think it depends on your local meta. Like if your local meta is full of cats, play fronts. If your local meta is full of Gravidia now and other decks, play draws, because draws also let you rush early. Like they have also 5k base power, so you can kind of like do some stuff if you open your Fachata. But I think like if I expected cats meta, didn't get cats meta, got screwed. Basically that's kind of the thing. So whether you play draws or fronts, I think it depends. If you do play draws, I recommend play 4 though and cutting a crit, or you can still play 3. Honestly, it's kind of fine whichever way you decide to go. And then of course the remaining triggers are all going to be crits. We play effect crits. Effect crits are really, really good in this deck because of course the soul gives us more Fachata usage, as well as, you know, making sure we can still use Oldens and form ups, which is pretty damn good. So of course this is a very, very, very important card. And then of course we play the 5k base crits as well, which are you know, just goes without saying, we just want to play more crits. Crits are good. Crits help us kill our opponent with Mr. Lagrele, which is always gonna be appreciated. And finally, 4 heals, because, you know, when you drive check up to 7 times per turn, you're gonna heal pretty often too, because people like to rush you. You don't have a lot of shield value in this deck, and so you're getting rushed early, and then you can heal. Yay, fantastic, amazing. So yeah, heals are good, and that's the whole deck. So now let's take a look at some Mulligan and, well, you know, gameplay examples, all that stuff. I can quickly go over the kind of like right deck discards. Generally speaking, if you have too many form ups, like this, as I said earlier, is mostly a turn 3 card, and I don't really get much usage out of it later, because I need my Soul and Countermoss for Alden and Lagrele. So this can definitely be discarded. And then if you have too many Vachatas, I generally speaking also discard them at times, because especially if I only have like 2 grade 3s in hand and I need them for the right deck, grade 1's not really doing too much. Otherwise, I can also discard crits and heals, because they are the lowest shield power, especially if I'm not playing as Lorna Roll, then I'm not as worried about keeping all this shield power in hand, so then I will probably be more willing to discard them. Rafluke, I also like Rafluke together with Refair Sauce. If I have too many of them in hand, I just kind of discard them as well. Like, having 2 Refair Sauce is really good, but that's like turn 4 or 5 where it's really good. Turn 3, I don't really need it. Same kind of goes for Refair Sauce, or sorry, for Rafluke. It's good to have it, raises your power ceiling a lot, but it's not like not as important as Alden. And then if I have more than 1 Lagrele, I usually drop it too, because you only really need 1 per game, unless, you know, that's the only grade 3 you can call off of Alden, then of course you want a second one. But, you know, it kind of depends on the situation. You kind of just adapt to what your opponent is throwing at you. All right, turning off my webcam for a little bit, just explain to you how some of the lines with Lagrele work. So let's say you have 3 CB here, and you have enough soul for 1 countercharge from Vachata. So let's just like try to approach one of these Lagrele situations, right? So swing with Lagrele here, and here we're going to choose to rest 4. So of course we rest 4, we're going to get our 2 drive checks, and of course we'll get a grade 3, we can already stand him, and these 2 will stand as well, and if we get a trigger we can countercharge. That's important. So we get a heal, that's nice. We can immediately activate the Vachata here to Soul Blast 2 and countercharge 1. So now we have enough CB to use Mr. Lagrele again, and then we check again another trigger. So here we won't be able to restand anything, and we're going to just put these to hand, right? But then we still have a Bastion swing to try and farm for that grade 3. So here we're going to check crit. Again, you know, we can put all of these here, for example, and then check a grade 3. That's nice. So here we can basically discard one of our cards to stand the Lagrele with all the triggers that we place on top of it, and then the 2 Referrals will also stand themselves too. And now you're going to basically swing again, and if you have the 2 CB from countercharging here, you're going to be able to rest these 2, so you only have to discard 3, and you still get 2 drives. So, you know, you drive check 2 times, get some grade 3s. You know, basically now we still have 5 cards from our 6 drive checks, because we discarded 1 from, you know, Bastion skill, so we have to discard 3. So let's say we just discard these 3, but we still got 3, you know, we got 6 checks, which is so much pressure in 1 turn. Alternatively, if you don't want to lose out on the, you know, on the attack from Alden here, for example, you can go about it like this. You can swing with Lagrele and choose to rest these 2, and let's say we're on Persona Ride turns, you can also boost with this, right? So this is swinging in with, like, on Persona Ride this will be 30 with 15k boost, so that's going to be coming in with 45, and, you know, we're going to check grade 3, very nice, and something else, that's cool. So we can immediately activate Bastion's effect here to discard 1 and stand not only this, but also stand these 2, and then, you know, Lagrele's effect has to discard 3, but if you only have 1 in hand, then just the 1 is gonna do, right? You do as much as possible. That's the rules of Vanguard. And here, you know, you can still swing with this, for example, or you can choose to wait, right, because you already used Bastion's effect, and just swing with a Bastion, and, you know, you check some triggers and all that kind of stuff, so you feel pretty good about yourself. And you can put them on the Alden too and kind of split up the power, so then you can still swing in with these 2 full columns because the Referzo stood itself. So the way you approach the Lagrele combos really differs from, like, the matchups and the different kind of, like, you know, just the different board states that you have and what you have in hand. Like, you really have to adapt with whatever you draw off of, like, stuff like the Alden, and it's always going to be like Alden will always be the most important piece to start off with, right? It's always going to be the main grade 3 that you want to actually start off, you know, your card draw with, in order to have the discard cost at times for the Lagrele here. On turns where you don't have Alden, your board is going to look a little bit like this, right? So it's going to be just like whatever you manage to throw together. Like, you probably called like one of these from the ride line and stuff like that. So here you're going to just swing in CB2 rest 4 in order to just farm some hand, right? So you're going to get some cards in hand, very nice. You check a grade 3, so you can choose to restand this and discard 1, and then of course this will stand, but because you're on not on Persona Ride, you're only going to be able to swing with this empty, right? So you're going to still swing with Bastion, do your remaining drive checks, and see what you get. So basically that's going to be how the cookie crumbles there. And now for quick, you know, just kind of mulligan as well as like early game kind of explanation. So we draw 5, and let's see what we draw into. So here, this hand, we're going to keep these two basically, right? So Olden and another grade 3 because they're pretty good. Depending on the matchup, like if it's Gravidia, you might even keep the PG to be honest, because you don't want to get blown up on turn 3. So we're going to put 3 back here for the time being. Let's say we're playing against like an average matchup where we don't need the PG. We draw into like 1 trigger, so that's our only shield value for all of the early game. But we're already like loop, you know, we have too many of some cards like Referzos, like we don't need it early that much, right? All right, so we reshuffled, and then let's say we go first here, right? So we're going to draw, get ourselves a Fachata, which could be good against certain matchups, but here the card we have too many is Referzos, so we discard it, and we're going to ride into the fort, and it's going to do absolutely nothing, so we're going to just pass. Turn comes, we're going to take 1 damage. Goodbye, Persona Ride. It's been nice knowing you. It's going to come back to our turn. We're going to draw. So here, the grade 3s I kind of want to start holding on to. So it's like, the question is, do I want to keep the Fachata or do I want to discard a trigger? We're going to discard the trigger here because let's say your opponent isn't rushing, so we don't need the triggers as much early game. We're going to ride into the rooks, and when you reveal your grade 3s, you want to show as little information as possible. So if you show Lagrele, they usually don't freak out as much as if you have like Olden early. So then like if you have an Olden early, they'll try to deny you the second CB, whereas if you show like Referzos and like Rafluke or like I don't know, like the Order, they don't care as much. So we're going to reveal these two and then call the top card of our deck. Let's see if it's the over trigger. No, it's an Order, which is even worse. It's going to go to the drop zone, right? So that's the dangers of running the Order. You literally lose out on that important card. So here we basically just have to swing for 10, or we can call down the Fachata to rush a little bit if we want to, and check a PG. So that would have been not the best call either, but it would have been at least a call. And then here this turn we get a heal, but let's say we're both at 1, so it does proc, and then we take another damage, get a crit, so that doesn't hit us anymore, so don't need to guard anymore. And this turn is our first grade 3 turn. Check into draw into Persona Ride is pretty good. We're gonna choose to discard the trigger again here. So as you can see, like I'm really holding on to my pieces. You know, technically you can kind of work without the Fachata. We haven't seen the other 3 yet, so we might draw into it from the Olden. So let's keep the shield power right into Bastion, activate the grade 2's effect to reveal 3 grade 3s. So this time around we can show the Olden because we'll be using it immediately to draw an extra card. We draw into a form up, which is pretty good. Would have been good to have if we had 3 CV as well, but we can use it next turn, so that's no biggie. And so now we basically like turn 3 is usually just like call Olden, and if you have 2 CB, of course you only call if you have 2 CB, you know, Kalmas 2, Soul Blast 1, and we call a grade 3 from our hand. We want to call one that doesn't reveal too much information, so something like a Referzos is good because next turn you can put it to the behind to call a Lagrele down here as well. And we're going to draw 2 cards. We're going to draw into Persona Ride and a crit, so more shield power for us. And here basically we don't have too much else to commit, so we can just basically swing with Olden for 20, which is good. You know, just the usual Bastion plays, and swing with 15 from the Bastion. All effects to this rear because we don't know yet if we're going to check a grade 3 or not. And then, ooh, double crit. So if our opponent took this, they're taking 3 damage, and if not, then this is all going here. And it's going to be a 35k 3 crit Referzos, which is also good. Next turn comes, we do want to take some damage just to be able to kind of like be able, to be able to use our skills. We get a heal again, so let's say we push our opponent to 4, so it does activate. Or I guess we would have had to push our opponent to 3 for that to activate, but you know, let's just save for the time being. But then we need to start guarding. You know, if it's like a Lorna roll, we're gonna be dropping like a bajillion shield to survive that, you know, with the guard restrict and whatnot. So let's just say we like crank out most of our shield in hand, and our hand looks like this, right, going into the Persona Ride turn. So here we're gonna basically stand and draw. We've used our Olden, we have 2 CB to work with, and ooh, that's pretty good. We have double Referzos, which is pretty good. So let's Persona Ride, draw into another Order, which you can discard. And so here, if we had taken another CB, we would have been able to use the form up, right? But in this case, we won't be able to. And so what we can do here is basically put the Referzos down and call a Lagrele, and then basically call another Lagrele here. And now you have the choice. Do you want to go for a Lagrele already? Like, how much is your opponent at in terms of damage? Like, if they're at 4, that's a good time to use a Lagrele. If not, then maybe you should save it. Save the CB for something else next turn. Maybe you should be using the form up this turn instead. Like, you want to farm up a hand, right, to be able to survive the next turn, because you're sure that you're not going to kill yet this turn. And that's the kind of questions you have to ask yourself while playing this deck. But let's just say like we pushed our opponent to 4 with that triple crit, you know, which doesn't make sense why we healed, but you know, don't question it, don't worry about it. Let's say we're going to choose to commit to the Lagrele here. So we're going to swing in first with the Lagrele, CB2, and rest both of these. Like, we're on Persona Ride, it kind of hurts to rest this, but what else do you want to call down? Your PG, like, you don't really want to be doing that, right? So we can get a drive check, we get a grade 3, that's good, and a PG, so that's also nice. So the grade 3 proc, so we can discard 1 card in order to stand the Lagrele, as well as these 2 will stand automatically, and then we have to discard 3 for the cost of our good friend here. So I'll discard a PG even because I don't think we'll need both. Persona Ride is very valuable. And now we've already used Bastion's effect, so we can actually just swing with Bastion next, and we have 2 full swings as well. So this heal won't proc, we can give the power to the Lagrele because it lacks in power compared to Olden, and a front, which is also very good. So we got some nice checks, and then we can basically swing in with the Lagrele column as well as the Olden column for the big power and try to end the game game in that manner. You could have also swung with Odin first and try to restand it off of the Lagrele because this power will always be bigger, so that's something you can also consider. And there you go, that is Lagrele Bastion in a nutshell. I hope this helps explain how the deck works and how you should be using Lagrele, and in general just like read the game with every turn, right? Don't commit into Lagrele and see how much you have to commit into Lagrele depending on your hand, depending on your opponent's damage, depending on the cards you've seen your opponent drive check and things like that. Like if they're gonna just PG 3 times in one turn, Lagrele isn't gonna be that good because you're gonna lose more cards than you gain from, you know, forcing out all those PGs and then losing next turn, right? So always think about it. It's a very cool card. It makes you feel cool because you pressure your opponent a lot into just like making misplays. That's the kind of decks I always like, you know? That's why I like die cards so much, because it pressures my opponent into making suboptimal plays. So I think Lagrele is very fun. Next deck we'll probably want to do is going to be on my iteration of World Gravidia. So I don't exactly play the same list as Solemn. Mine is more similar to Derek's and Kelvin's, who also topped with the deck. And it's also different from Nuno's and also different from Kent's, who won EU. So I'll explain kind of World Gravidia, closer to the Japanese build of it, but I still have some of my own takes and choices on the deck itself. So look forward to that sometime this week, because I really do look forward to talking about that deck. Let me know any other decks from set 3 you want to see me deck profile, like whether like Nirvana or like, I don't know, Quenlu, Bruce, and things like that, because I do enjoy this format quite a bit, but I'm also ready to get into set 4 and start playtesting because set 4 is super hype and looking really cool. Anyway guys, if you like the video, please do give it a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe because I do appreciate it a lot. We're trying to hit that 50k soon, so please give me your support. But other than that, that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.